White horse is brown horse. Stand by to copy.
Line Sierra, 2-0 personnel. Line Alpha, patrolling what appears to be the headquarters. Break. Line Lima, 3-8 Sierra.
Tuesday, April 29th, 2003. Roughly 2 months after US forces invade Iraq, BBC News releases an article that is so strange it seems to go against the very nature of our reality. Now, in order to understand the true significance of this article, we need to take a journey back in time, all the way back to approximately 2,500 years before the birth of Christ, and to a place that we now know as modern-day Iraq. And it is here that we begin our story. Tales of supernatural beings can be found all over the ancient world. The Bible, the Book of Enoch, and the Book of Giants, as well as other ancient Jewish texts, all speak of an event where fallen angels descended to earth and fooled mankind with their knowledge of science, war, and beauty. It is also recorded that these fallen angels, or Watchers as they are called in the ancient text, manipulated the genetics, the DNA of mankind, creating an actual race of giants, as well as other hideous monsters using animal DNA. Descriptions of these disgusting beasts can be found in the Book of Giants, which, by the way, was part of the Dead Sea Scrolls collection. Parallel to that, other ancient texts speak of the same exact event, except it's from the fallen angels, or the Watchers' perspective. In ancient Babylon and Mesopotamia, for example, the Watchers were seen as a good thing. They came to help mankind, and they showed people how to do cool things. And they also created a mighty race of giants, men of renown. However, biblical accounts reveal these things to be evil, fallen angels led by Lucifer himself, who want nothing less than the total destruction of mankind. Quote, according to Mesopotamian myth, there were 7 Apkallu before the flood and 4 afterward. The word Apkallu comes from the Sumerian Ab, meaning water, Gal, meaning big, and Lu, meaning man. They were considered only partly evil, occasionally dangerous, and capable of malicious witchcraft. They were chimeric in appearance, usually depicted as humanoid with wings, or sometimes as hybrid birdman or bizarre fishman creatures. The antediluvian Apkallu were divine, just like the Watchers. According to one story from the Babylonian period, the Epic of Era was the god of pestilence and plague. Marduk banished the Apkallu to the Abzu as a punishment for provoking him to send the flood. Supernatural beings linked to a global flood who are afterward banished to the abyss? Sound familiar? Interestingly, the 4 Apkallu who appeared after the flood were only partly divine and could mate with humans. Again, like the Watchers, the last of the post-flood Apkallu, Lunana, who was 2/3 Apkallu, matches the status of Gilgamesh, who was described as being 2/3 divine and 1/3 human. On the cylinder seal, Gilgamesh is called Lord of the Apkallu and is elsewhere credited with bringing back great knowledge that existed before the flood. Scholars who have made the connection between the Apkallu and the Watchers tend to interpret the way the Watchers are portrayed in Jewish literature from Second Temple period, like the Book of Enoch, at least partly as a Jewish response to the Babylonian captivity. It was believed that the Apkallu, though potentially dangerous, had preserved secret pre-flood knowledge prized by the pagan wizards of Babylon. To the Jews, however, such knowledge was evil, and the Watchers were portrayed accordingly in Enochian texts. End quote. So, we have one epic story seen through 2 different lenses. On the one hand, we have the creator of the universe, the God of the Bible, telling the story. He is saying, yes, these fallen Watchers are evil and you need to avoid them at all costs. And on the other hand, we have the account from the Watchers themselves saying, hey, that little guy, referring to God, I wouldn't worry about that little guy.
How about that little fella?
Well, that little guy, I wouldn't worry about that little guy.
Quote, scholars have known for years that there are parallels in the Mesopotamian legends and the biblical accounts of the patriarchs. Enoch is similar to an antediluvian king named Emidaranki, and Noah is variously called Unapistim in Babylon, Zisudara in Sumer, and Atrahasis in Akkad. But even those accounts are part of a fallen realm military campaign, a supernatural psyop. For example, the accounts from Mesopotamia portray Gilgamesh as a mighty warrior, a hero, 2/3 god and 1/3 man. He has adventures and slays monsters, notably Humbaba, the defender of the faraway cedar forest, who'd been assigned to terrorize humans by the god Enlil, who is Enki's brother. In the Second Temple Jewish account known as the Book of Giants, Gilgamesh was himself one of the gigantic offspring of the Watchers, as was Humbaba, the monster Gilgamesh set out to kill. This is how Gilgamesh was viewed by the Jews between the time of the Babylonian captivity and the birth of Jesus. Basically, he was one of the Nephilim. End quote. One of the Nephilim. In case you don't know what a Nephilim is, it's the unholy offspring between the fallen Watchers and a human woman. Yeah. Moving back to Gilgamesh, he was a giant, part supernatural being, part human, otherwise known as a Nephilim. Now, here's where it gets crazy. Scholars actually believe Gilgamesh existed. And not only that, this article from 2003 the BBC News put out says they may have actually found his tomb. Quote, Gilgamesh tomb believed found. Archaeologists in Iraq believe they may have found the lost tomb of King Gilgamesh, the subject of the oldest book in history. The Epic of Gilgamesh, written by a Middle Eastern scholar 2,500 years before the birth of Christ, commemorated the life of the ruler of the city of Uruk, from which Iraq gets its name. Now, a German-led expedition has discovered what is thought to be the entire city of Uruk, including where the Euphrates once flowed, the last resting place of its famous king. I don't want to say definitely that it was the grave of King Gilgamesh, but it looks very similar to that described in the epic. Jörg Fassbinder of the Bavarian Department of Historical Monuments in Munich told the BBC World Service's Science in Action program. End quote. So, let's take a look at this in the big picture and see if anything makes sense, because as of now, this whole thing still remains a mystery. First off, the Bible says there will be a time when the Nephilim return. Some people believe this is a spiritual return by demonic possession. Others believe it's physically, as in a return of the giants. Fast forward 2,000 years, archaeologists find Gilgamesh's tomb in Iraq, 2 months after US forces take over the country. Is it possible that when news broke of the discovery of Gilgamesh's tomb, orders were given from the highest possible levels of government, and US troops arrived at the site to seal it off? DNA was collected from the skeleton and brought to a top-secret underground research lab where tests were conducted. Tests involving cloning technologies and CRISPR-Cas9. Of course, the only thing we can do is speculate. So what do you think about this? Do you think they really found Gilgamesh's tomb in 2003 as this article states? If so, what happened to it, and why is there no mention of the contents? Or maybe what they found was so insignificant that they thought all news coverage should just stop.
We're observing everything to the west of that MSR. Can you see the palm?
Does the deep state really exist? Mainstream society as a whole will be quick to tell you no, the deep state does not exist, and it is nothing more than a far-right conspiracy theory. Well, if it truly is a far-right conspiracy theory, then why did a Democrat, who also happened to be the President of the United States of America, not only seemingly confirm the existence of the deep state, but also suggests that they are the ones who are in charge of the UFO or UAP programs?
An official UFO sighting report, one of thousands compiled over the last few decades. This particular report from October 1969 was filled out by Jimmy Carter. He was still governor of Georgia at the time. He witnessed a luminant object suspended in a twilight sky. Later, when he assumed the office of President of the United States, his staff attempted to explore the availability of official investigations into alien contact. As this internal government memo illustrates, there are some security secrets outside the jurisdiction of the White House.
Outside the jurisdiction of the White House. If the President of the United States is the Commander-in-Chief of the entire U.S. military, just who can be outside the jurisdiction of the White House? Seriously. If the deep state does not exist, then who in the world are they referring to? March 22nd, 1950. This letter was sent to the director of the FBI. March 22nd, by the way, is 322. 322 is the calling card for the actual Skull and Bones secret society. Whether or not they have anything to do with this declassified document, well, your guess is as good as mine. Let's continue. On March 22, 1950, this letter was sent to the director of the FBI by a man named Guy Hartel. The letter reads as follows, quote, "An investigator for the Air Force stated that 3 so-called flying saucers had been recovered in New Mexico. They were described as being circular in shape with raised centers, approximately 50 feet in diameter. Each one was occupied by 3 bodies of human shape, but only 3 feet tall. Dressed in a metallic cloth of a very fine texture, each body was arranged in a manner similar to the blackout suits used by speed flyers and the pilots. According to Mr. Blank, informant, the saucers were found in New Mexico due to the fact that the government has a very high-powered radar setup in that area, and it is believed that that radar interferes with the controlling mechanics of the saucers. No further evaluation was attempted by Blank concerning the above." End quote. So there are people in the government who know something about the UAP phenomenon. But what about the private sector? So if the United States government wanted to convince the public that extraterrestrials were visiting mankind, how would they do it? Behind me here, Skinwalker Ranch is the perfect way for them to do it. What they're doing, in my opinion, is preparing the public for something. Now, either it is fake and they're preparing the public for some sort of massive deception or psyop, or it's real and they're preparing the public for something that they know is underground that they will reveal at some point. Behind me, we're at a place right now, right down the road from Skinwalker Ranch, called McConkey Ranch. Now, McConkey Ranch, all these walls behind me are filled with magnificent petroglyphs dating back hundreds, maybe thousands of years. What do these petroglyphs show? In my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of other people, these petroglyphs basically tell a story carved in stone. Now, the story is almost the same as what we hear that went on at Skinwalker Ranch. So basically, we have a record carved in stone by the native people here on the rock faces behind me that tell almost the same exact story of what's happening and what happened at Skinwalker Ranch. You have portals, you have monstrous beings coming out of the portals. So it is my opinion that the petroglyphs here at McConkey Ranch behind me lend credibility to the whole Sherman Ranch, Skinwalker Ranch story, because these things have been happening in this area for a very, very long time. So there's 3 distinct possibilities about what's really going on here. 1, there's something buried under the ground that the government found out about during the OSAP and NIDS investigations, because a lot of that stuff is still highly classified. So first theory is that there's something buried under the ground and the government knows about it. And when I say something, I mean a piece of technology from thousands and thousands of years ago, from what we would call the antediluvian era. Yes, fallen angel technology. And whatever this is activating a wormhole or a portal and allowing these entities to come through. Now, is it at will? Is it random? Does it depend on the moon, the stars? Who knows, because these things are very strange and it's really hard to even understand what's going on there if the stories are true. So if the stories are true and there is something buried under the ground here, what does that mean for us? It's simple. They want us to believe a certain thing about what they're going to find. They're going to publicize it. The people that are here right now have been chosen by the government to basically unveil this piece of antediluvian technology to the world. I believe they've been chosen by the government to release this information. I believe the government actually knows what's under there. They've done their tests. They know what's there. Now, remember a few years ago when Fox News came out with an article saying that the Pentagon has recovered, quote, off-world objects not made on this earth. On July 23, 2020, Tucker Carlson shocked the world when he said this on his live Fox News broadcast.
This is a Fox News alert. There are new findings tonight in the search for extraterrestrial life. The New York Times reporting that a secretive Pentagon unit tasked with investigating UFO sightings is quite likely releasing some of its findings soon. But apparently just recovered are off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. That's a direct quote.
The following day, multiple articles were released going into more detail. The Intelligencer reports on July 24, 2020, quote, "The Pentagon has reportedly found off-world vehicles not made of this Earth." Also, Fox News releases an article entitled, quote, "With Pentagon UFO unit in the spotlight, reports mention off-world vehicles not made of this Earth." Off-world objects not made on this Earth. That's exactly what I think is underground at Skinwalker Ranch. So if the government knows what's happening here, why don't they just come and take it? Well, it's simple. They already have plenty of these crafts they don't need anymore. We know they have recovered discs from Roswell, and if you don't believe me, why is it still classified, right? Does that make sense? If they said, hey, it's a weather balloon, why is it still classified? You think the weather balloon technology is still classified 75 years later? No, not at all. Here's what it is. They did recover flying discs in Roswell, and them keeping the information classified still reveals it, because they declassified stuff that doesn't matter. Go through all the old UFO reports from the 60s, 70s, 80s. A lot of that stuff is declassified. Why? Because it's meaningless. It doesn't matter. Roswell obviously does matter, so they kept it classified. So, in my opinion, the first news report that came out about Roswell is correct. So they have the craft recovered at Roswell. They have off-world objects not made on this Earth, according to Fox News. And Bob Lazar talks about his experience working with these crafts. So we know the government already has these things. They don't need any more. So why do they want the public to find out? It's simple. If they want to deceive the public about what's going on here, about what they've found, this is all they have to do. All they have to do is say, hey, look at these things. This is what they are. And then from there, they can use this crisis as a means to their end, right? It's the old Hegelian dialectic. Problem, reaction, solution. What is the problem? The problem is, oh, we have these UFO crafts buried under the ground. Reaction. Oh, we're not alone in this world. Oh, everybody, okay. Solution. So what is my opinion on Skinwalker Ranch? My opinion is that all of this is planned. My opinion is that the modern owner, Brandon Fogel, and everything that's happening on the show is orchestrated by the United States government in order to reveal something under the ground. Think about it. What's going to happen if on the History Channel, the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch TV show, some season finale, they unveil an actual off-world object not made of this Earth, as reported by Fox News? They unveil an actual UFO. What would happen? I'll tell you what would happen. People would go insane. So, I think that's what they're going to do. I think the whole plan is disclosure. They want to reveal these objects to the public, but they want to do it in a way that is not threatening. And they believe, I think, putting it on TV is not threatening. So that's what they're going to do.